All right, thank you, Jason. That wraps up our McKinney Prize. Our final prize today moves up a century. This prize was established upon the retirement of Professor Warren E. Wright in 1994. After more than 30 years at Hamilton, the prize competitors are limited to students who have taken the college's public speaking course. Because of this stipulation, students represent different class years. This prize is unique among today's prizes in two ways. First, the speeches are informative rather than persuasive. Second, finalists also field questions from the judges as a part of the competition. Each speaker will answer 2 questions from the judges. Our first finalist for the Wright Prize, Junior Amaris Martins, has focused her speech on intuition. Amaris will remain on stage after her speech for the judges' questions. Welcome, Amaris, for the second time.
I want to run a little experiment to get you thinking a little bit. So let's put your morality to the test. Imagine you're in a parking lot, and as you're backing out of a tight parking space, you accidentally knock into the car that's right next to you. You come out and you assess the damage, and you notice that it's very extensive and it would be very costly to fix. You're looking around the parking lot, and there are no cameras, no witnesses, and the driver of the car is nowhere to be found. Do you leave a note with your name, contact, and insurance information, taking responsibility for the damage, or do you drive away as if nothing has happened? Once you have an answer, I want you to just hang on to that in your head. Have an answer? Great. But let's try another scenario. Imagine you forgot a really important milestone for a very close friend, maybe like their birthday, and they're clearly upset about it. Do you apologize to them, admitting that you did forget? Or do you make up an excuse as to why you forgot, hoping that they wouldn't notice and that they'll eventually get over it? Don't worry, I'm definitely not eyeing down somebody in this audience right now that forgot my birthday once, but it's okay. But I want you to think of something else. How did you come to your decision in each scenario? I mean, whether you thought to drive away, or leave a note, or to admit you forgot, or make up an excuse, I think that this highlights something very fundamental about human decision-making. You see, a lot of the times, when we have a problem, we tend to go out and find the solution. For example, if you're trying to figure out how to get to your destination on time, you wouldn't just sit back, close your eyes, and hope that the answer comes to you somehow. Instead, you would check your GPS where it gives you the best route, the best course of action to take, giving you a practical solution. However, sometimes we have problems in life, such as the ones we've just discussed, where the answer isn't so clear-cut. So we tend to rely on something else, our intuition, to give us that solution. Moral psychologists and philosophers often describe our intuition as that inner voice or that gut feeling that tells us how to think, feel, and act in any given situation. However, the way we choose to respond often feels personal, doesn't it? Each person seems to construct their own justification as to why they would go with their own course of action. And that's because our intuition is so closely tied to our emotions. Let's think about it. Feelings of apathy and indifference would tell your intuition to drive away as if nothing has happened. As you're like, hey, it's just a scratch. It's not that big of a deal. They have insurance, so they'll be fine, hopefully, right? However, feelings of guilt and remorse would drive our intuition in the opposite direction, forcing us to take some sort of accountability. And the same applies for the second scenario as well. Feelings of panic and fear that your forgetfulness may cost you a friendship would drive your intuition to make up an excuse on the spot, while feelings of contrition and disappointment in oneself would force you to admit that you actually did forget. But while our intuitions, which are fueled by our emotions, offer a solution to help us navigate certain moral problems, they aren't infallible. One reason is because our emotions can often be ambivalent. This means that we can have two conflicting emotions going on at the same time that's driving our intuition in two totally different directions. On one hand, you can be feeling guilt, which is pulling you towards immediate honesty. We feel the weight of our oversight, the pain we've caused, and an intrinsic desire to repair that damage. Our intuition is whispering, tell the truth, make it right. On the other hand, we can also be feeling fear and panic, which is also pulling our intuition towards avoidance. We want to avoid the awkwardness, the potential for anger and disappointment, and we don't want to admit to where we made a mistake. Our intuition is also telling us, protect yourself, avoid the confrontation. Another challenge is that our emotions are often fleeting and inconsistent. This means that relying solely on our gut feeling can be risky, as it may cause us to respond in a way that we may later regret. Let's think about it. Imagine you're in a moral situation where you witness somebody that's shoplifting, and you're trying to figure out what is the best way to go about it. Your initial intuition might be to confront them because you're driven by outrage at the injustice. However, if you later learn that that person was stealing food to feed their starving family, your intuition might switch to something else, as now you're probably feeling compassion and maybe remorse. This causes a problem as where our first instinct isn't always necessarily our best instinct. So this creates a problem as to what is the best way to go about our issues. So how can we know when our intuition is leading us in the best direction? Well, the simple answer is there is no definitive way to know for certain. But instead, in those moments where we have profound moral ambiguity, we must act with what the philosopher Kierkegaard calls a leap of faith. Now, this isn't some blind, random jump into an abyss, but rather a deliberate act of choosing to align ourselves with the values we hold most dear to us, whether it's honesty, loyalty, integrity, justice, forgiveness, even when the consequences remain shrouded in uncertainty. Ultimately, our intuitions serve as a moral compass in life's toughest problems, where the solution can't be found anywhere else but within the depths of our own character. Thank you. Questions? That's a great question. So to repeat the question, I'm assuming that you're asking how do we use AI to go about navigating certain moral problems, correct? I think that it can help us to navigate it in a certain sense where maybe we can use it for ideas. Maybe if I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to go about it, maybe ChatGPT is going to say, here are 2 different ways you can go about it. But the reason why I disagree with this is because I feel like our values should also play a role in it. So ChatGPT doesn't hold values. ChatGPT doesn't hold integrity. It doesn't hold forgiveness. It doesn't hold loyalty. So while it can provide you with potential solutions, it doesn't necessarily hold the values that can help us navigate actual problems in real life. So I think while it can be used as a tool, it's not necessarily the best tool at that.
I'm wondering how you determine the causal order when you talk about both emotion and intuition in response to the dilemma. And I'm not sure that the first example you gave is an actual one, but that's another question. Because it's more a question of should I do the right thing rather than what's the right thing to do, which is what I think was wrong. But anyway, so you have an emotion, which is maybe guilt or confusion or desire to escape, all those things. But you also have an intuition, and they kind of come, I assume, simultaneously. So how do you know what the order of those is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to repeat the question again, it's how do we know the causal order when it comes to our emotions driving our intuitions, correct? So as I was saying earlier in my speech, our emotions basically fuel our intuition. So while we're going through certain problems, we're probably facing different emotions that are going on, and we're looking and we're saying, okay, this is the emotion that I'm facing right now. And that emotion is going to tell our intuition how to go best about it. So I think that's the causal order right there, emotions, and then it guides our intuitions. And then we do a little bit of reflection because, as I said earlier, sometimes our emotions can be very deceiving. So then when we reflect on that, we go back to what we value instead. So that if we face another moral problem that's pretty similar in nature, we're not using our emotions to guide us, but instead the values instead. Hopefully that answers that. Great.